Today we're looking at binoculars.
Bushnell? That means nothing to me. When I was growing up, we had a pair of binoculars in the household. Not like this, and I don't think it was this brand, but it was an old, we would say vintage pair of binoculars now. And they were in a brown case that was kind of shaped to it. This is very square. But I remember using those to look at birds and such. They were passed down from my father's father, grandfather on that side, who, as it turns out, I didn't realize this, really liked watching birds and then carving birds into wood. Really cool. I'd like to see that one day. I know that my dad has. He showed it to me one time, like a box of his wooden carvings, and I'd like to go look at that. Never made that connection between what he did, what I do, until now when I was recording this video. These are Sport View wide angle 10 by 50 binoculars. Instafocus. I picked these up from a thrift store a year or two ago. Again, very similar to something else we've talked about for kind of a purpose of just putting in the background for videos, because binoculars, wildlife cameras, lenses, the entire thing kind of fits together. I also really liked this design. I like this older style because of my grandfather's binoculars that I liked to play with and look through and look at birds and things like that. It was interesting to find. They weren't very much. These are not exactly great. Bushnell is still in business today. As it turns out, when I was doing the research, I found out that they were founded in 1948. And that is it. That is all I could find about these. I could not find anything else. I could not find out when these were made. I could not find out how much they cost. There was nothing. There is no documentation about these at all. There are manuals for other Bushnells, but not these. And I don't know how far back they go. So somewhere between 1948 and today, these were made. I'm going to guess closer to 1948 than they were today. But I can't find anything. I can find them being sold all over the place. They were very common. And that explains why I picked them up for like $10 at a thrift store. They do have a bit of rotation left in them, but it is not very much. I need to probably grease them all up if I were going to use them. Not entirely sure why this goes back and forth. I can't tell that this does anything function-wise. But I also imagine these aren't supposed to just pop right off. Maybe so. Maybe they do so that they can be cleaned. I don't know. Maybe that's broken. So, because I don't have that much to share on it, I couldn't find any information about them at all. They're just cool binoculars. I like the design, I like the way they look and everything. They don't function super well. The technology has come a long way since whenever these were made. More modern binoculars that I have do a much better job of being able to see a clear image at a distance. And we're going to talk about those. These are what I use today. Nikon Aculon TO2 little pocket binoculars. They work great. They're super lightweight. They give a pretty decent 8x21 image. They're really useful, especially when I've got the camera set up and I see something else. I can't move the entire camera, so I just grab these. You'll see me using them all the time. These stay in my bag and they go with me every time I go out, so I can see things at a distance. But this is not the first pair of binoculars I had. These are the first pair of binoculars I ever owned. Just a cheap pair by Tasco, nothing super impressive or anything, 10 by 42, which is, as I should have explained before, the first number is the magnification, so it is a 10 times zoom, it multiplies it by 10 times, and then 42 is the millimeter size for the viewing angle, as far as the lens goes. I picked these up quite a few years ago at this point, and there's a little bit of a story that goes along with that. Now, this is a story that I wrote about on a blog back when I was writing instead of recording videos. But for the first time, I went out on a Saturday, mostly going to drive around and look and see what kind of areas I could go to, try to find spots where I could come back and see wildlife more frequently. I still took a camera with me, but I also brought my significant other with me. She didn't typically go out for things like that, but I told her that it was just mostly going to be in the car, so it's not going to be a lot of hiking and walking around. We're just going to go from place to place and look for things like that. And after visiting a few places, we wound up going near a Walmart, and I saw that. I was like, oh, let me stop. I've been wanting to buy binoculars, and these will work great for the fact that now you have something to do. I felt a little guilty that I had one camera and nothing else. If I had a pair of binoculars, at the very least, I could be like, here, you use these, I'll use my camera, you can tell me where you see something and kind of direct me to where it is, and make it more of a group activity. So we did that for a couple of hours, looking. We actually saw, this was the first time that I saw a woodpecker, thanks to her help. She went, oh, there's this thing here, and showed me where, by pointing out from the binoculars where she could see it, and I took a picture of a woodpecker. That was the first woodpecker that I'd ever seen and taken a picture of. Then something else happened that day. And I remember that more so when I think of these binoculars. I remember this day of being able to do all of this. After a few hours, we went out very early in the morning at sunrise, like I usually do. And getting towards lunch, after eating lunch and whatnot, we were a couple hours away from home and actually not too far from where one of my siblings lived. So we called the sibling and said, hey, you want to do something? We're in the area. We don't do this very often. We wound up going to the botanical gardens, and I was taking pictures of the various flowers and plants arrangements that they had. They would shape them into different things, and that was really cool and really interesting. Butterflies, things like that. And then at one point we come along and there are hummingbirds. They've got an arrangement of flowers, and there are hummingbirds coming and dipping in and out, and that's really cool. So obviously I want to get some pictures of hummingbirds. But that's not what made me go and grab the big lens out of the car. And to be fair, I didn't even go and get it. My significant other ran and grabbed the lens while we watched, because what we saw while we were walking on the outskirts of the botanical gardens was a hawk. And the hawk came swooping down and attacked a nest that was in the tree and grabbed something and then flew off with it to another branch. And then there's awful noises that we're hearing. I have some pictures of this event, but they're kind of gruesome, so I don't try to put that kind of stuff on YouTube so I don't get flagged for anything. They're on my website. There'll be a link in the description and whatnot to this particular day and the story that I'm talking about. But that's what I remember from this day. Not only did I get new binoculars, not only did we get to see some cool landscape places that I could go again to see wildlife, I got to see a woodpecker. I got to take a really good photo of a hummingbird. I was really proud of being able to get it with the flower and then the hummingbird, and it's frozen in midair with its wings fully spread out. Hummingbirds are so cool. But we got to watch a hawk get its meal out of a baby squirrel, which was unfortunately gruesome, and it was just tearing into it, and you know, that's nature. Sad, but really cool to see. Would not have seen that if all of those events had not led up to exactly where we were at that point in time, and happened to have my camera and everything ready. That would not have happened if we hadn't done it. So I remember that entire day when I think about binoculars, and especially this pair. I don't use them anymore. The pocket ones are much better quality. They were more expensive. This was like 20 bucks. The pocket ones were closer to 100. And really for those reasons, that's why I like all the binoculars that I have. They look cool. I really like the design of these. They're going to look nice on a shelf, and it reminds me, apparently bird watching is in my family and I did not realize it, a fantastic day out where I got to see something really cool. I buy a pair of binoculars, and I use them every time I go out right now. So like, I like binoculars. These are cool. It's more lenses. It lets you see something up close when you can't actually get up close. That's literally the whole point of what I'm doing with the wildlife stuff and trying to see birds up close. That's what they're great for. For all those reasons, these are something that I like.